Okay, well, we're still here in chapter section 2-5, and we're looking at scatter plots and lines of regression. And in the previous video that dealt with example 1, I showed you how you can use an Excel spreadsheet to create a scatter plot as well as a line of fit. And in this video, we're going to use our TI 84, 83, whatever calculators to do the same thing, except rather than a line of fit, we're going to determine what is called a regression line, which is a much more complicated calculation that we allow our calculator to do for us. And so let's start here. I'm now on page 95. I'm looking at example 2, and this is the guided practice. We're kind of going to review first what we're going to be asked to do, and then in the next slide I'm going to jump over. We're going to get on a calculator, and we're going to go through all the steps that are necessary to create a scatter plot on the calculator, as well as find a line of a regression line, and then use that regression line to make a prediction based on the data that we have. So let's take a look here, right here. So what are we being asked to do? So this is dealing with music. It says the table at the right shows the percent of sales that were made in music stores in the United States for the period 1999 to 2008. Using a graphing calculator to make a scatter plot of the data, or use that. Find and graph a line of regression. Then use the function to predict the percent of sales made in music stores in 2018. So we're going to do 3 things here. 1, we're going to use a graphing calculator to make a scatter plot of the data. 2nd, we're going to find and graph a line of regression. And then thirdly, we're going to use the function to predict the percent of sales made in music stores in a future year. So 3 things that we're going to do. Now, we see here from our table in the year 1999, 44.5% of all music sales were made in music stores that sold CDs. And as you might know by experience, your own experience, that form of music sale has certainly been on the decline, where most everything now is streaming, or you're going to download it on the internet or whatever. So this information here is a little dated from where we are right now. It's 2016 as I'm shooting this video. But we can see that our sales has been on a pretty steady decline. In other words, we've gone from 44.5%, and then in 2008, only 30% of all music sales were made in a music store. Now, there's a couple of things here that's going to be important as I jump over to the calculator, and you'll see what I mean. And that is our range of data. My year 1 here, the first year I'm looking at, is 2009. Also, it goes to 2008, but I'm also going to be made to make a prediction for the year 2018. And so my range of value, my X values, I could say that these are X values. The sales are going to be Y values. My range on my X value is going to go from 1999 out to at least 2018, because that's what I'm going to make a prediction of. Then on my sales side, my range of data goes from, well, the actual range goes from 44 down to 30. And I just want to point that out because when we get into the calculator, we got to set our window settings to fit our data, and you'll see what I mean once we get there. So I'm going to move over here to the calculator, and we're going to go through steps necessary to create a scatter plot. 2, find a line of regression, then graph it, and then use that function to predict the percent of sales in a future year. It's exciting. All right, well, now we're going to use a calculator to create a stat plot. We're going to then graph it. We're going to use our calculator to find a regression line. And then we are going to make a prediction or predict what these music sales are going to be in the year 2018. But before I begin, there's a couple of things that you may need to do preparing your calculator for the actions we're going to take. And the first thing I want to do is go to my catalog and make sure that my diagnostics are turned on. So I'm going to hit second catalog. And let's see, I want to turn on the history too. View history. So that it'll show the key history. Okay. Let me clear what I got right now. All right, let me start over with this so that you could see what my, so I hit second catalog, which brings up the catalog. And then I'm going to need to scroll down to where I can see diagnostics. And there may be a quicker way to do this than what I'm doing, but I know this works. Continue scrolling. You can see the catalog scrolling by. These are all commands. And let's see, it's going to go a little bit too far. All right, so I'm going to go up here to where it says diagnostics on, and I'm going to hit enter. And this is not something that you necessarily do every time, but if your calculator has not been set up for diagnostics on, you need to make sure it's on. Second thing I want to prepare for is get my where my stat plot, turn on my stat plot. So again, I'm going to hit second y equals or stat plot, and it's going to bring it on. And you can see here that my plot 1 is in fact on, but I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here. I want to make sure that it's turned on by getting to this point right here and hit enter. And then I want to make sure that I've got the correct kind of graph. And I want to choose this first one here that you see right here. This is the stat plot. So I'm going to hit enter again. Okay, even though mine was already turned on, I just wanted to show you those key factors. Second, see, another thing I want to prepare to do is clear anything that's in the y equal. So I hit y equal, and then I cleared all of that. All right, now I'm ready to enter the data so that I can begin thinking about the stat plot itself. And so I'm going to hit stat right here, and then I'm going to hit edit and enter. Choose option 1 and enter, and I'm going to enter the data. And so first I'm going to have the years. And so it's 1999, and I'm going to just enter through here, 2000, 2001, and you can see I'm just going down through L1 and entering the number of years. All right, so I've got that entered, and now I want to go back up here to L2. And in L2, I'm going to enter these sales percentages one by one. So I start with 44.5, then 42, and each time I go through here, I can hit enter. 42.4, 42.5. You may want to be following along on page 95 of your textbook. This is example 2. Oh. Okay, better. 32.5. Looks like I might have missed one along the way. Let me see. Well, that first one's wrong too. Let's go back up to here. I want to change that to 44.5. All right, 42.4, 42.5, 36.8, 33.2, 32.5, 39.5, 35.4. Still looks like I've missed one. Let me double check that again. 44.5, 42.4, 42.5, 36.8, 33.2, 32.5, 39.4, 35.4, 31.01, 30. I don't have enough data points here. What have I got wrong? 90, 2001, 2002. Oh, got two 2003s. I got to go over here and change that. Very important that you be double checking your data. As you can tell, it's pretty easy to make a mistake. All right, let's see. 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007. Okay. Okay, there we go. My computer froze up a little bit, and I'm going to clear that 2008 and hit enter. Oh. Well, let's see if I can hit delete. There we go. Okay. All right, looks like I've got all my data in here correct, although I struggled there to get that a bit, but that's good to watch. All right, now, I want to graph this, but before I do, I want to check my window settings. Now, and what I'm looking for is my data ranges that I spoke about in the last slide. And if you remember, I started here at 1999 for the X values, and it went through 2008. But I know I got to make a prediction out to 2018. And on my Y values, my range of my Y values, my domain. So my domain is going to run from at least 1999 to 2018. And my range is going to run from my Y values 30 to at least 44.5. So I'm going to hit window. And I've already made this adjustment. And so I want to make sure that I got enough room for my data to appear. So rather than 1999, I picked 1998 for X minimum. And X maximum, I could go with 2018, but I'm going to use 2020. I'm going to leave my scale the same. And then on my Y minimum, if you recall, the range went from 30 to about 44.5. So I want to put it a little bit outside what my range is. So I chose 28 for Y minimum and 46 for the Y maximum. And rather than a scale of 1, I changed that to 2. So I'm going to hit the graph, see what we got here. Okay, and you can see that I've got plots of data here. So I've got a scatter plot. Now, doesn't seem to be a strong correlation, but I can definitely see I've got some type of negative slope going on here because I'm going down and to the right. But I'm going to use my calculator to create a regression line. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back here to stat. I'm going to hit stat again. And this time, rather than edit, I'm going over here to calculate. And I'm going down here to option 4, where it says LINREG, or linear regression, because I'm wanting to create a regression line. So it's option 4, and I'm going to hit enter. And I want to make sure that I've got X list is L1, Y list is L2. I don't have anything in the frequency list. So I'm just going to hit enter, enter, enter all the way through to calculate. Okay, and so here I've got a linear regression in the form of y equals ax plus b, and I would substitute in for a negative 1.44. I might just round that down to 1.44, well, let's see, 1.45, something like that. And then my y-interceptor b is 2,934.31. Okay, now I want to get the graph to display this linear regression. I'm going to go back here to y equals, and now I'm going to hit this vars, V-A-R-S, variables, vars. So I'm going to hit vars. I'm going to go down to statistics, option 5. I'm going to hit enter. Then it brings up this menu, and I'm going to scroll over here on that top bar to EQ, which is equation. And option 1 here is REG-EQ, or a regression equation, and I'm going to hit enter. And you can see that it has put that linear regression equation into the y equal. So now I'm ready to hit graph, and there's my regression line. So we've created a stat plot, we've graphed a stat plot, and we have created a linear regression line, or a regression line. And now I'm ready to take the last step in this problem and predict what the percentage music sales are going to be in 2018. And so now I'm going to hit second trace, or calc, second trace, and which is going to be calc, and it's going to, and I want the value. I'm going to choose option 1, and it brings me back to the graph, and it says x equals 2000, or x equals blank, and I'm going to put in 2018 for 2018. I'm going to hit enter, and here it tells me that when x is 2018, y is equal to 15.8. And so that's good enough for me, or that would be 15.8%. And so based upon the data from the table put together in a scatter plot, which you see the points of data being plotted right here, creating this linear regression line, going in and asking, okay, well, what kind of value could I predict for the percentage sales of music at a music store in 2018? And it tells me that that would equal 15.8%. All right, a lot of keystrokes. You may want to watch this video more than one time. There was a lot of history right down here. This shows every keystroke I made in order to get us here. Although I had a little bit of trouble because I had some data duplicated and I entered some data incorrectly. That's a key point, to always be checking your data, double check your data before you go ahead and graph it and get a linear equation, because if your data's in there wrong, if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. But that's how we find a linear regression line after creating a stat plot on a TI-84 calculator, and that is the end.